Good day, viewers. You're welcome to another episode of Tommy Talks Legal. As you all know, my name is Tomilola Daniel, your real estate consultant and due diligence expert. So today, we are going to be talking about the tips to avoid problematic tenants. But before I go on, I want to say a very big thank you to everyone that has subscribed to my YouTube channel. I am now 100 subscribers on the YouTube, and I really appreciate it. I thank you for your support so far. As long as I keep giving value, kindly help me to keep sharing and subscribing to the YouTube channel. So today, I'll be discussing on the tips, what you can look out for, what you need to do so that you can avoid problematic tenants. I decided to do this because one of my viewers on YouTube called me up and she told me the problem she was having with a tenant she got into her apartment. She got the tenant into her apartment in a hurry, out of sentiment and compassion. But what people forget is that there is no sentiment and compassion in business when the necessary dots, when the necessary boxes have not been ticked. So she admitted this tenant into her property without the proper due diligence, without signing a tenancy agreement, without verifying the identity of the tenant. And she wanted to help the tenant, because he stated that he was under distress in his former place of residence and quickly needed to move into a new place. Then after he settles down, he will do all the necessary paperwork. But eventually, these tenants failed to do the paperwork, started creating nuisance, started avoiding the property owner, and she was not happy, she was not comfortable with the situation, and she called in for a consultation. I am glad that I was able to be of help to her with my service. So I just thought of it that a lot of people out there could also be having the same issues, having problematic tenants, and they are finding it difficult to get them off their property. While you are that, which I hope you'll be successful with, if you are not successful on your own, kindly engage the services of a lawyer. What are the things you need to know before allowing another tenant into your property? Number one, ensure that you get a lawyer. Once you have the intention of renting out your property, make sure you get a lawyer. As we all know, there is a general saying, prevention is better than cure, and preventing is more affordable, is less costly than when you need to cure a disease. So it is with getting a lawyer before getting a tenant into your property, as there is no hard and fast rule to getting a tenant into your property, because different properties or different prospective tenants have different peculiarities. So it is based on these peculiarities that will determine the kind of due diligence that will be done, despite the general way or mode of admitting tenants. So if you get a lawyer to help in getting tenants into your property, it saves you a lot of headache. And this is the biggest and the major of all. Once you've gotten this right, every other thing else will fall into place. So what is my number 2 tip? Screen your tenants. If there are going to be 10 tenants you want to screen, ensure that you painstakingly do your due diligence. So how do you go about screening your tenants? Identify them. So once a prospective tenant comes to you and tells you, my name is so and so, ensure that you verify that identity. How do you verify that identity? Beyond word of mouth. Ensure that you get their means of identification. And I'm not just saying their workplace identification alone. I am saying their national means of identification. As you all know, people can be funnier nowadays. They can just enter into one business center and get, a means of identification done. But once it is a national means of identification, there is a 99.9% assurance that that is actually who they are. Number 2 thing that you need to screen about your prospective tenants: their workplace. What is their occupation? What do they do for a living? So if they are an employer in an organization, ensure that you verify that they are actually working in that organization. How do you go about that? I would always advise people to do that based on the value of the property. So when they tell you I work with so organization, ask them for the address of the organization, ask for a reference letter. You can also decide that you want to speak with their employer, or at most visit the place of occupation to verify that this person actually works with the organization. You can even go as far as asking for their bank statements. This will inform your decision if this kind of person is worthy of your property. What other things do you need to screen? What other things do you need to ask or verify before accepting a tenant into your property? Ask them the reason why they're leaving their previous place of residence. You want to know what transpired. So when you ask them, you can go further to verify. Let it not be that they have an issue as to payments before coming to your property. And depending on the peculiarity, as much as we know that no situation is permanent and unforeseen circumstances or emergencies can arise from time to time, but you still want to ensure and know the reason for them wanting to exit their previous place of residence. What other things do you need to screen? You also want to know their marital status, how many kids they have, how many people are going to be living in the property. You don't want to admit 2 to 3 or 4 persons into your property and eventually your place of residence turns into a boys' hostel or a girls' hostel or a den of battalions, So these are the things you need to do, because these are the informations you will need embedded in your tenancy agreement. So after you screen all those things and they tick the box or they're satisfactory to you, what other things do you need to do? I already said it before that you ask for their means of identification, but beyond asking, you need to obtain a copy of their means of identification. So if they're providing you with their national means of identification and their workplace ID, ensure that you have a copy of the means of identification and that's work ID, because at some point you can never determine or envisage the unforeseen circumstance that may arise in the course of the tenancy. These are the things that will help you in such situations. So what other things do you need to look out for or do before admitting a tenant into your property? Prepare a tenancy agreement. Ensure that you prepare a tenancy agreement, because this will guide both parties during the period of the tenancy. And I would always advise, where you have a landlord who is not willing to engage the services of a lawyer to prepare your tenancy agreement, ensure that you as a tenant, you watch your back by getting a lawyer to review the terms and conditions of the tenancy agreement. You do not want a situation where in the period of your tenancy you begin to live in distress because of the agreement that you've signed and is binding on you. So once the tenancy agreement is signed, or while this is done, another tip I will share with you is to make sure that your tenants have a guarantor standing in for them. So you present them with a guarantor's form, you see the guarantor, and you obtain the national means of identification of the guarantor, if possible their workplace ID. This will serve as a buffer for you when there is the happening or an unforeseen circumstance arises in the course of your tenancy. This guarantor form is a form of assurance to you that when any emergency situation arises, there is a cover. So what other things do you need to do before admitting a prospective tenant into your property? Ensure that you meet your tenants in person before you admit them into your property. As we all know, our appearance says a lot about a person. So do not rent out your property to a tenant in absentia. Ensure that you meet this person one-on-one. This would allow you the opportunity to assess the kind of person you are admitting into your property. And to cap it all up, I would say this: no matter the emergency, no matter the level of your compassion or excuse or reason that could happen when you are admitting, or that a tenant can come to tell you, no matter what happens, never you accept or admit a tenant into your property in a hurry. Ensure that you tick all the boxes. Ensure that proper due diligence is done. Ensure that all the boxes are ticked, so that you do not in a hurry buy yourself a criminal case. Because by the time you admit a criminal into your property, or persons of questionable character, you would not have yourself to blame. So if this video has been helpful to you and been of value, kindly again share with your audience, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and click on the like button. As you all know, I am Tomilola Daniel, your real estate consultant. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, kindly reach out to me on the comment section and I will be there to give you an answer. Thank you, as we look forward to another episode next week. Bye.